All right, let's check in on Israelis melting down about the Iran deal. A lot of coping today, a lot of seizing. It should be fun.
Good transition to the freakout in Israel, because obviously, as you pointed out, Israel and Lebanon still the primary area in which this whole thing could fall apart, and could fall apart very quickly. I actually want to start with B6 here. Bezalel Smotrich coming out and expressing his concerns about the deal. He says the agreement with Iran is bad for Israel and for the entire free world, period. The joint campaign had many achievements in weakening Iran. They will not go to waste. We will have to continue the campaign to topple the regime ourselves.
Yes, they're going to try to do what they did to Syria. It took a decade to take down Assad in Syria, and a lot of covert action funding ISIS in Syria, tore that country apart. They're going to try to do that with Iran. The only problem is Iran's a lot farther from Israel. It's a lot bigger than Israel. And the civilization there is a lot older than Syria. You're talking about civilization that's been around for thousands of years. I don't think it's going to go as well.
And in creative ways, and ensure that Iran will never have nuclear weapons. None of the candidates who see themselves as fit for the premiership would withstand even 10% of the pressure currently being applied to the Israeli government, especially to the one at its head. In Lebanon, we will be tested. This is our war.
You mean the entire world hating Israel right now? Yes, there's a lot of pressure on Israel. Wonder what you could do if you were leadership in Israel to reduce that pressure. You mean maybe stop leveling cities, stop annexing land, maybe?
Fighters and the immediate security of our northern residents. I will continue to act so that we continue to stand firm on ours and allow the IDF full freedom of action to continue pushing Hezbollah away. Jeremy, what do you make of those comments? I took particular note of the mention that they would continue to try to topple the Iranian regime in, quote, creative ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clear, and that's
creative ways. Yeah, ISIS in Iran now.
It's been the policy for a long time, but I think they're going to really escalate those efforts. I mean, Crystal, there's something else interesting here, which is that Iranian officials and analysts that I've been talking to, not just government officials, believe that there is going to be another war, and it's going to be between Iran and Israel. And they said that the focus right now is the issue of decoupling. The Israelis and the United States are trying to decouple Hezbollah from Iran. Trump now has gone in a bit of a different direction because of this reported concession to the Iranians. We'll see how that plays out. And they've enlisted the Lebanese government in this parallel so-called peace process, and they're trying to get the Lebanese army to serve as the kind of domestic enforcer of the campaign to break Hezbollah. And that has all kinds of complications.
Yes, because Israel's current real goal is to annex Lebanon, all of Lebanon eventually, but for now, the south of Lebanon. And Hezbollah is the obstacle to that. And if Hezbollah has the backing of Iran, well, then it's a lot more formidable. And so they're trying to decouple, like they said there, so that Israel can just take all of Lebanon right here. They're going after the south now. And it's not working. The decoupling is not working.
Complicated issues attached to it because of the diversity of Lebanon, the way the system is structured, and the popularity of the.
By the way, the government in Lebanon is really a puppet. Makes deal with Israel, gives everything to Israel, doesn't ask for any promises like to withdraw from Lebanon or anything. No, completely, utterly corrupt leadership in Lebanon.
Distance right now, particularly among the Shia population of Lebanon. From the Iranian position, and I was told this by an Iranian official in addition to Iranian analysts, the Iranians want to try to accentuate the divisions between the United States and Israel on Lebanon. And they have no illusions that Donald Trump has been this immense backer of these genocidal.
Well, even if even if Iran does nothing, there is going to be decoupling at some point between Israel and the United States, just because the way public opinion in the United States is turning against Israel. Of course, they're doing everything to prevent that, like trying to merge the Israeli and U.S. military, trying to merge the CIA and Mossad. There's bills being proposed and passed for those purposes right now. We'll have to see if they actually fully get through or not. But yeah, it's an effort to cause decoupling, and then there's effort to prevent that. Very dynamic.
Scorched earth wars. They're clear on that. But they also are very savvy students of American politics, and they understand that there's divisions within the Republican Party. They understand that Israel is increasingly becoming a toxic issue on the right in the United States, that it's going to play a role in the midterm elections, that Netanyahu is going to face re-election, and that he's being attacked from the right, saying you didn't finish these wars. That Hamas still is in power in their section of Gaza. That Hezbollah is still killing Israeli soldiers, including with these very cheaply made FPV drones. That the Iranian government is still
and Israel is still trying to take more Lebanese land. That has something to do with why Hezbollah is using these FPV drones.
firmly in place, and there's actually a Khamenei who is the supreme leader of Iran. And so I do think that it's not just the loonies like Smotrich and Ben Gvir, but I think the mainstream of Israeli political power wants to continue this war against Lebanon. And the wild card here is what happens when it comes up against Trump's public projections. But at the end of the day, no one trusts the Americans. No one trusts Trump. The Iranians are not stupid.
No one trusts Israel either, by the way.
In fact, their delegation often is flush with PhDs when ours is flush with last weekend's golf scores.
Right. Let's put B7 up here on the screen. Just to your point, here we have Yair Lapid. A tough morning for this guy is the leftist, by the way, of Israel. This morning,
quote unquote.
Israeli citizens are waking up to an agreement between the U.S. and Iran made over Israel's head. In one signature stroke, immense military achievements secured with the courage of our pilots and the blood of our fighters has been erased, while Netanyahu stood on the sidelines, weak, ill, isolated, and powerless. He signs an agreement that funnels billions to the Ayatollah's regime, leaves the nuclear structure intact, preserves the ballistic missile threat as is, throws a lifeline to the murderous regime in Tehran. This is the
This is the left in Israel. The right is going even more ballistic.
culmination of long years of failure. Netanyahu is the man who for years sold the public a false image of Mr. Security and in reality became the father of Israel's greatest strategic failure in history. The man who built the notion of Hamas is an asset, who enabled the flow of...
Yes. Hamas is an asset. Netanyahu funded $1.3 billion, funneled that money into Hamas. Hamas is not an Iranian proxy. Hamas is Netanyahu's pet monster. I say it again and again. Israeli media reports on it, but so many in America think like Iran was behind October 7th or something. It's ridiculous.
Qatari money who abandoned the diplomatic arena, who dismantled Israel's alliances and left it isolated at the moment of truth. Netanyahu is good for Hamas. He is good for Iran. He is good for Hezbollah. He is not good for Israel. The one who promised total victory ends his tenure with Israel's enemies stronger, Israel weaker, and the deterrence built with the blood of our fighters eroding before our nation. I mean, you could have written that from Ben Gvir or Smotrich too, but it does demonstrate, Jeremy, the level of basic, I guess, bipartisan is what you would call it, with the problem for Bibi Netanyahu.
And that's if this deal stands. So Netanyahu has every incentive of the world with elections coming up under corruption probes in Israel to restart the war, because otherwise he's probably going to end up in jail because of the corruption charges
inside of Israel at a critical political moment for him. And so how are the Iranians thinking? They can look at Israeli politics the same way any of us can about the reality.
Well, it's this.
If Tung 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 Shahur walked into your room and started busting some moves.
Okay, we'll save that for later. We'll save it for later.
Thinking, they can look at Israeli politics the same way any of us can about the reality of getting 60 days without fire in Lebanon, potentially even fire on Iran.
That's the thing. This deal that's just been signed on Sunday, you need to have the ceasefire last until Friday for it to really go into effect, for Iran to start opening the Strait of Hormuz. So Trump needs to keep Netanyahu contained for 5 whole days. And believe me, that's not going to be easy. Netanyahu's already bombed Lebanon once. So far, it's just one violation, but there'll be more.
I mean, and we've been talking about this on the show and elsewhere before, that it's been really clear over the past few years that it's not, as Bernie Sanders says, the extremist right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is at the core of mainstream political life now in Israel. And in some ways, it is reminiscent of the posture of many top Democrats in the United States, where they're sort of egging Trump on, and they're sort of using the taco line that Trump always chickens out, and they're trying to sort of make it more, make Trump more aggressive, or sort of attack him from the position of you failed to achieve these objectives, and the regime is being left in power. There are ways in which that also is kind of a common dynamic within the institution.
Yeah, the taco saying is widely known. Trump always chickens out. Taco. And it has been leveled at Trump to ridicule him, because it is ridiculous the number of times he's tacoed out specifically on a Tuesday. So now you have Taco Tuesday.
Constitutional Democratic Party, who very much actually
I am not a Democrat, and I've used it too.
wanted a war against Iran, and they were happy to have Trump do it because the odds of it becoming a disaster could be beneficial to the American Democratic Party's political future at the midterm elections. But again, my understanding is that many Iranian officials, many leaders of Hezbollah, do not view this as the potential end of the war. They view it as a phase where the crossroads is going to be how much more.
Oh, Israel and the U.S. still want to take out Iran. They just can't. And the Strait of Hormuz is forcing them to do this.
Deeply does the United States get involved with what is ultimately going to be a war on the part of Iran, Hezbollah, potentially a broader axis of resistance against Israel as the Israelis start to ratchet up their covert operations inside of Iran. Tests are going to be all over the place in the next week or so because the Israelis clearly want to undermine this. Trump apparently told them he's going to stop this. I doubt it. I think it's going to be really tough. And then the ball is in Iran's court. Do we say no nuclear negotiations unless the scorched earth bombing or siege of Lebanon stops? That really, in a lot of ways, is going to be the massive question looming over this for the coming days.
Yeah,
Yep.
as it has been the whole time. Just to give a broader sense of how this is landing with the Israeli public, not just the political class, we can put B3 up on the screen. These were some Telegram comments that were pulled by Middle
This is what I was waiting for.
Eastern analyst Sina Tusi. Among some of the choice quotes here from ordinary Israelis on Telegram, God will curse Trump.
Yep.
The first war in Israel's history that we lost. We have to admit the facts. Iranians taught America a lesson. I think that's probably true. Hopefully, in 10 years, we won't be dependent on American idiots. And then to
Optimistic of you to think you'll be around in 10 years. Just saying, if American support disappears, which it might in the next few years, you need to survive a few years on your own. So before this, you can worry about 10 years from now.
turn to the American domestic political context, because we have plenty of influential pundits in our own country who seem to put the interests of Israel above virtually anything else. One of them being Mark Levin, who's been very influential with the White House. Trump has tweeted out multiple times, hey, you got to watch what this guy Mark Levin is saying because he's right on target. Let's go ahead and take a listen here to B1 and his immediate reaction last night to what we knew of the deal.
And when Israel is forced to defend itself, including preemptively against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and remember, they're not at war with Lebanon. They have a peace deal with Lebanon.
Yes, Israel's way to defend yourself is they projected, okay, you in a few years you might decide to attack us, so we're bombing you today, even though you have no intention of attacking us today. That's the type of self-defense Israeli practices.
They've never been at war with Lebanon. And it is said to be in violation of the deal. We saw this play out earlier, providing the Iranian regime with a strategic opportunity to attack Israel, claiming it's defending its ally, and that Israel violated the deal. What then? Will Israel become a pariah? And will it be admonished? Iran's counting on it, and so is Hezbollah.
Well, if you weren't leveling cities in Lebanon, the world might take more kindly to you, Israel.
Hezbollah must not be in the deal. It must not, and that must be very clear. But to me, and at this stage, it's not very clear, despite some of the language that's been put out in anonymous briefings of certain media by administration officials.
Let's also put Lindsey Graham up on the screen because I thought his
He's melting down. He must be melting down.
response was also very interesting. You know, in the American political context, Jeremy, mostly I've seen the neocons sort of reluctant to directly really criticize Trump, especially since the American side has not released all of the details of the deal from their perspective. So in any case, Lindsey Graham
Yes, some of the details are still being kept secret. The meltdowns will intensify as the contents of the MOU get leaked.
here says, I'm pleased to hear the memorandum of understanding with Iran to allow the Strait of Hormuz to open has been agreed to. I'll be watching closely the ensuing negotiations regarding Iran's nuclear program and other matters. I'm somewhat concerned that Iran's view of the agreement seems different than what the American negotiating team is claiming. Under our law, any nuclear deal with Iran will be sent to Congress for review and a vote. So Congress didn't get a say on going to war, but apparently peace that Congress has to approve. I look forward to reviewing the final product, and I believe it is imperative that the architect of the deal, Vice President Vance, and his
Vance is being thrown under the bus by Trump. He's going to try to direct all the anger towards Vance of the neocons and the pro-Israel lobby. Poor Vance.
Partners be part of the process in presenting the final deal to Congress. Congratulations to all in getting us to this point. Time will tell. That piece about JD Vance to me is very significant because it seems like it's Lindsey Graham trying to position himself to be very critical of the deal without having to criticize Trump.
To be clear, Trump agreed to this deal. Any trying to pin the blame on Vance, that's all bullshit.
Directly. He can blame, JD Vance, the negotiating team. They screwed this whole thing up. If it was Trump at that negotiating table, man, we had art of the deal and regime change and all the things that we all would have, that, he personally.
Thing is, art of deal, that only works when you're in a good position to make a deal. If you're on the losing side of a war, it doesn't matter how good a negotiator you are, you're going to get fucked.
They would have wanted.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, we're looking also at 2028 messaging here, and clearly Lindsey Graham doesn't want JD Vance to be the nominee, at least at this point, or the successor to Trump and the MAGA move.
I can already said Trump, Rubio, and Vance are all finished from this Iran war. And so you don't need to worry about Rubio or Vance being a nomination on the ticket on 2028. They're going to be tarnished. Not yet, because one, the economic damage of this hasn't completely played its toll, and two, the damage from this deal hasn't played its toll yet because people are still finding out what's in it, and it only happened yesterday, so a lot of people still haven't learned about it. I hate Trump, but I say we forgive his $300 billion mistake if he cuts ties with Israel for good. Well, yeah, that might happen. It's not. I'm not going to say it's likely, but the only way out of this for Trump is ultimately he has to force Israel to heal. If he forces Israel out of Lebanon, for example. And that would be very good, yes. It still would be, he still shouldn't have started the war, but it would be very good if he got Israel out of Lebanon.
Movement. But a couple of interesting details, Crystal. One is on this issue of Iran's ballistic missile program. Trump and others were talking from the beginning that, the Iranian ballistic missile range has to be reduced, that their ballistic missile program has to be eliminated, that their support for their regional allies has to be completely ended, that the nuclear dust is going to be taken by American forces and removed from the country. Now, what are we talking about? Trump is saying, it doesn't actually need to be removed. It can be destroyed in the country. What this is, for people that actually have been following this closely, is Trump.
What's interesting is there were reports that about 2 weeks ago that Iran might already have a nuke. That Trump had even told that if we went back to full-scale war, Iran would test a nuke. Now, so in that context, would they be giving up a nuke they already have? Or are these nuclear discussions even real? Well, obviously. Or were the reports about them that warning to Trump just a bluff? We'll have to see.
Is coming around to the position that the Iranians told them was their red line, which is Iran said, we are not going to remove our highly enriched uranium. We are willing to discuss a dilution of it. The Iranians also told me they were willing to put on the table a 10-year moratorium on enriching above 3.6%, that they were willing to dilute any of their enriched uranium that's above 20% back down to civilian levels. They said that they were coming in with a flexibility. It was Trump that laid out all of these things. The regime is going to be overthrown. The people are going to rise up. We're going to get rid of all their ballistic missiles. They're not going to have a drone program anymore. We're going to come in and U.S. soldiers are going to retrieve the nuclear dust. Now what we're talking about is going back to sort of the discussions that were existing as of February 27th, the day before Trump and Netanyahu launched this war.
Yes. Actually, there they capitulated a lot more, Iran. They'd given the deal better than the JPOA to Trump offered, and Trump rejected it and killed the supreme leader instead. We're not going to get anything better than what they'd offered that day. So, yeah, this will be worse than the JPOA, worse than the deal that was proposed to Trump on February 28th.
The big scandal here in perpetuity should remain that Donald Trump chose this war, that he did so not only at great economic cost to the world, not only because it humiliated the United States, but also because the deal that he's going to get in the end potentially is going to be worse than the terms the Iranians were putting on the table for the year, basically, leading up to this war.
Exactly. So the entire war was a waste.
And really, if we had an actual aggressive Congress where you actually had Republicans willing to take on the president, This is an epic scandal, what has happened, because what we've seen over the past 100 days is a complete and total unnecessary war that was counterproductive, that in the end makes Americans less safe also because it shows the world that there's this gratuitous violence that the U.S. will just unleash, that Israel seems to be in control of a large portion of our decision making, and that the president of the United States humiliated the highest office in the land and wasn't even able to get a deal that was better than the terms that the other side was putting on the table before.
We spend like half our stocks of Tomahawk missiles. And for what? For what? For a deal worse than what we could have gotten before. No regime change in sight. All bad.
You went and launched a 100-day military, economic, and diplomatic war. It's scandalous.
Jeremy, one last.
Let's just hold that
Sorry.
after the deal's done. Then we can see. Then let's all be honest after the.
And this horrible, horrible deal that Trump has agreed to, that's a good outcome. Every other outcome is worse than that. The outcome of doing nothing, just letting the world economy tank because Iran holds the Strait of Hormuz closed, or the alternative of the entire Middle East going up in flames because we decide to escalate. Both of those are worse. This terrible, horrible deal that's absolutely atrocious for the United States and Israel and humiliates us, that's the good outcome.
Deal's done. In the interim, he's the greatest president of all.
We can say we're very glad that perhaps potentially there is a deal to end this disaster, but that it's been a disaster. But one last question for you, Jeremy. Why did Iran choose to make Lebanon so central and we hear nothing about Gaza?
I could answer that right away. Lebanon only happened because of the Iran war. Hezbollah, in support of Iran, started firing missiles into Israel after the Iran war started. And then Israel invaded Lebanon. So the Hezbollah, only reason Lebanon is in trouble and is losing territory is because of the Iran war and Hezbollah's support for Iran. Hamas, on the other hand, it was Netanyahu and Qatar that were funding Hamas. Hamas is not an Iranian proxy or ally. And Hezbollah is. It's a completely different situation. And of course, Iran doesn't want Lebanon to lose territory because of the actions of its ally. So that's the situation.
I mean, that's a question that many Palestinians have asked me. I also discussed this the other day with Hassan Ahmadian, who's one of the most well-known Iran analysts. And, the answers that I've been given when I've talked to Iranian officials about this, just as someone who's really immersed in covering Gaza, I found them to be unsatisfying answers, but I understand them. Iran says that that this is more complicated than Lebanon because the Palestinian factions signed an agreement with Trump and with Israel, that there's a United Nations Security Council resolution that is governing the so-called Board of Peace, that there is a separate track of negotiations that is happening between the Palestinians and the Israelis via the Board of Peace.
And because Iran didn't finance Hamas, has no strong relationship with Hamas, so it's a different situation. They still supportive of the plight of the Palestinians, but Hamas is a terrorist organization that has done stuff like October 7th, killing a lot of civilians. Hezbollah, the rockets it fired, it was at least aiming to the extent that they could aim their rockets at military installations.
Yes, the Iranians are watching, and they are extremely opposed to this and say that they're in solidarity with the Palestinians of Gaza, but they're saying that it would require an entire separate diplomatic track and that they don't have the leverage to also put Gaza and the war under its umbrella. And one Iranian official said to me, so if we were to start doing this, what do we say about illegal settlements? What do we...
Yeah. What about the West Bank? Why only Gaza? Then you have to... No, there's a limit. Also, get Israel out of Lebanon, then you can worry about the West Banks and Gaza. One step at a time. Don't ask for the moon.
Say about the siege and the forced displacement in the occupied West Bank, it's not that we don't want to do this. It's that in order to do that, it requires a whole other front. And what they're saying is, we're going to get to that, but Hezbollah actively entered the war front on March 2nd.
Exactly. He's saying it. For good.
By attacking Israel in response to the aggression against Iran. And also the myth of Iran being the kind of primary backer of Hamas, it's just false.
It's false. I've said it. Hamas is Netanyahu's pet monster. The funding for Hamas came from Qatar. Went to the IDF, and then Netanyahu's IDF handed it over to Hamas. That is how Hamas has been funded from 2012 to 2022. So it's not an Iranian proxy.
That Iran is somehow some puppet master controlling Hamas. Hamas and Hezbollah have a very different relationship to Iran. I think the Iranians also came to a point where they felt like this was D-Day. And if they didn't draw a red line in defending and having a joint front with Hezbollah and the southern resistance in Lebanon, that they were essentially ceding that territory in perpetuity to the Israelis. The situation with the Palestinians in Gaza is unspeakably horrifying. Just one statistic for you. Israel has killed more Palestinians since the October ceasefire was signed than Israeli civilians that were killed on October 7th. Think about that for a moment. The Israelis have killed more Palestinians, approximately 1,000, in Gaza since the ceasefire was signed last October than.
Yes, Israel has a particular view of ceasefires. It's basically the other side stops shooting. That's Israeli views of ceasefires. But Israelis keep shooting. It's great for Israel. And also, if we're looking at, Israel is trying to steal like a bit of territory from Lebanon that's like 3 times the size of Gaza overall. It wants to annex all this land here, going even up above the Litani River. It's preventing that is Iran's priority.
And civilians who died in Israel in the Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, 2023. When you look at that and then you say, oh, we're making a deal with Donald Trump, the world looks very different. So I think that's why everyone's very suspicious about this.
That's a really, really important point there. And it is, if anything, it at least dispels this myth that Hamas is 100%, Iran controlled. Because
it's a complete myth. I'm not going to bring up all the news stories, but actually I'm going to bring up one of them. I'm just going to show. You go to Google, type Israeli support Hamas. It brings you to an entire wiki page against it. Also, you have this article. It explains, for years Netanyahu propped up Hamas. Now it's blown up in our faces. And the last one that I always have to show, Israeli Mossad Qatar. Netanyahu sent Mossad head general to Qatar, begged it to pay Hamas. February 22nd, 2020. This is not, Hamas is not an Iranian proxy. Hamas is Netanyahu's pet monster.
If it was, then they would be drawing a lot more red lines around that than they did around Lebanon, which genuinely does make a lot of sense. Thank you so much for your analysis and all the work that you guys are doing, Jeremy. We rely on you so totally to actually get the truth about what's going on.
Yep, that was a good short video. Israelis freaking out about the Iran deal, and the fun part is it's going to get worse as the details leak for during this week. Less fun part is we're probably going to have more ceasefire violations by Netanyahu. Will the deal hold all the way till Friday? Stay tuned and find out. In any case, this video will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe, come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye!